If you're like me, or maybe my mom, who watches cable news all the time and is asking me questions about what's going on with early vote, you want to know what's going on with early vote. So let me tell you, we feel really good about what we're seeing out there. In fact, in Nevada, in Clark County, over the last 2 days, we have seen higher turnout from young voters than we have at any other point in this cycle.
That's great.
We are seeing Republicans voting early, but these are Republicans that are going to vote no matter what. So what they're doing is they're changing their mode of voting. They were going to vote on election day, now they're voting early. Our folks are voting, and they're voting at the levels we need them to vote in order for us to win.
Friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, hit like, comment, subscribe. It really helps us out, and I appreciate everybody who does that. I do have some hopium for you, actually. I saved a thread. Actually, this guy does a newsletter called Hopium Chronicles. All right, let's get some hopium. If you guys want to do some hopium, we can do that. Happy Wednesday, all. This is from Simon Rosenberg. He's a good hopium source on Twitter. Okay, happy Wednesday, all. 6 days of hard work left until victory. I ask two things of you today. Make sure you voted. I haven't done that yet. I'm not setting the best example. Voting early helps our campaigns move on to lower propensity voters earlier, helps us grow our vote, helps us win. Please vote early today if you have not yet. It's really important. Volunteer for the Harris Walls campaign. Here's the official volunteer link. We need to leave it all out there on the playing field in these final 6 days to go. Okay, hold on. There's one primary story today, the vice president's historic event at the Ellipse last night. We're going to skip this a little bit. We're going to go down a little bit. Excuse me. The 2024 election, we are winning the election, but we have not won it yet. Here is Harris Walls campaign chair Jen O'Malley Dillon's week out state of the race update. It's important that everyone watch this and yes, do more and worry less in the final 6 days. So Jen O'Malley, as far as I understand, she's a Democratic operative. She's worked on multiple campaigns, and she was one of the people sounding the alarm in 2020 that the Biden margins they weren't lining up with their internal numbers. So this is not like, you know, take it for a grain of salt. This is a partisan operative giving her take on the state of the race. But again, from what we observed in 2020, she does not hesitate to call out if she thinks that there's too much hopium. So she was saying that the race was actually going to be much, much closer in 2020, and she ended up being 100% right. So I am very curious to hear what she has to say about the state of the race right now.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen O'Malley Dillon, chair of the Harris Walls campaign, and I am here today to give you a campaign update.
Can everybody hear okay?
I'm going to tell you why you don't have to feel anxious and you can feel good, because we have multiple pathways to get to 270 electoral votes. We have 7 states in play. This truly is a margin of error race. Sometimes at this stage.
So just to give you guys a sense of where I'm at, this is the map that I've locked in. I think I'm just going to land here. I don't suspect that the race is going to change too much in the next 7 days. This is my map currently. I gave Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan to Kamala. I gave North Carolina and Arizona to Trump. Gun to my head, this is what I'm predicting, but I just want to, again, just like the caption says, there are literally like 15 to 20 super plausible maps that can go in either direction. There was some interesting data out of CNN today as well, if we want to take a look at this. I don't think that we can really trust this delta. This seems like quite a bit of space between Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin. So I'd be really surprised if the final results end up something like this, because they have Kamala +6 in Wisconsin, +5 in Michigan, and they have it tied in Pennsylvania. There was also a Quinnipiac poll that came out today that had it Trump +1 in a full field in Pennsylvania. But Quinnipiac is like very noisy this election cycle, so throw it into the averages and go about your day. You know, if you're Kamala, you obviously love to see Wisconsin and Michigan with such safe margins. But again, I really doubt that she's going to win either of these states by more than 2 or 3 points. And the Pennsylvania numbers that they give us have me a little bit concerned. Pennsylvania is obviously a really crucial state. We can win without it again. We can win if she picks up one of the Sun Belt states plus Nevada, or any combination of the Rust Belt states, to be honest with you. Or the Sun Belt states, rather. So if we look at the map, and we fill it in. Let's give Wisconsin. Let's just assume that this CNN poll is accurate. So we're going to give Michigan and Wisconsin to Kamala, and let's give Pennsylvania to Trump. So what does the rest of this look like? Well, you could not win with just Arizona and Nevada. You have to have some combination of North Carolina and or Georgia in one of these two states over here. So if she loses Pennsylvania, she would have to pick up North Carolina, and let's just give Georgia to Trump. And all she would need in this spot is Nevada or Arizona. If she gets both, all the better. And it's the same with Georgia. So if we give Georgia to Kamala, then all she would need to do in this spot, it would be to win either Arizona or Nevada. It doesn't matter. Either one works. And she would get to 270. So she does have a path without Pennsylvania. If we're on election night and we're looking at the data roll in and Pennsylvania's not looking so hot, there's still plenty of room to feel optimistic about this scenario happening. I feel pretty good about Georgia right now. And honestly, people are starting to convince me on Arizona. And honestly, there's a good reason to be optimistic about North Carolina as well. The gubernatorial race is so lopsided that it's difficult to fathom that. Let's just say, like, it's entirely plausible that because of the Stein-Robinson matchup for the gubernatorial race, that it buoys her above just where she needs to be in North Carolina and delivers her that state. So that's, again, assuming that she loses Pennsylvania. Of course, if she locks up all these Rust Belt states, that's the whole ballgame. You can give the rest of these states to Trump and she still wins. So let's tune back in to hear what Jen O'Malley had to say. A lot of noisy polls today. But again, just throw it into the averages and go about your day. Okay.
To the game, you have to narrow your pathway, so you only have one way to get to 270. We are growing with our support and momentum, and because of that, every single state, the Blue Wall, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the Sun Belt, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, and North Carolina, every single one of these states are in play, and in each of these states...
Something else that's super relevant is Donald Trump has announced a lawsuit in Pennsylvania. He's preemptively, without any kind of merit or basis whatsoever, he's preemptively accusing Democrats of cheating in Pennsylvania. So you could interpret that to mean that he's looking at his internal numbers in Pennsylvania and he's nervous. There's no way that you can draw definitive conclusions from him taking those steps. There is a chance that he was going to do that no matter what. But you could look at that as an indication that he feels somewhat afraid about the state of Pennsylvania right now.
Every week we see and we monitor our numbers, we monitor the work that's happening, and we're seeing growing enthusiasm, and we're so excited about it. If you're like me, or maybe my mom, who watches cable news all the time and is asking me questions about what's going on with early vote, you want to know what's going on with early vote. So let me tell you, we feel really good about what we're seeing out there. In fact, in Nevada, in Clark County, over the last 2 days, we have seen higher turnout from young voters than we have at any other point in this cycle.
That's great.
We are seeing Republicans voting early, but these are Republicans that are going to vote no matter what. So what they're doing is they're changing their mode of voting. They were going to vote on election day. Now they're voting early. Our folks are voting, and they're voting at the levels we need them to vote in order for us to win. And in fact, when you get under the hood on those numbers and you look at who...
So again, the reason why I feel like she has a fair amount of credibility and you can't just dismiss her outright because she's partisan and she's working for Kamala's team is the fact that she was cautioning us in 2020 against the polls being so lopsided in favor of Biden. If we rewind the tape back to 2020, 4 years ago, the national averages had Biden anywhere between 5 and 7 points ahead of Trump. He ended up winning by a decent amount, like 7 million votes or something like that. But I think his spread was only 3.5%. It was not close to the national average. I want to say it was even outside of the margin of error.
Who our people are that are voting, these are our lower propensity voters. They're folks that don't vote all the time, and they're showing up early. And those are the ones that show the enthusiasm and the growing enthusiasm that we see. And while I'm here to tell you we feel really good with what we're seeing, we still have a lot of work to do, and we need your help to do it. There are still a lot of people in these states that are undecided, but what we know from our own polling is that undecided voters are more open to supporting the vice president and governor.
this is another like really crucially important factor in this election is how are the late breakers going to swing? I don't know how they swung in 2020, but I know that they swung towards Trump by a pretty large margin in 2016. Again, I think you can blame Jim Comey for that. Her numbers pretty much tumbled as soon as he announced that they were reopening their investigation into her because of Anthony Weiner's laptop. Is that his name? But what we're seeing in the final week of this campaign, I think we're seeing exactly what we need to see from Kamala. She gave a speech last night and she gave a speech today that is heavily catered towards moderates. It takes Trump, the speech takes Trump to task and calls him out for his shenanigans. But they're pushing a unity message in the final stretch. And then when you turn on a Trump rally, it's just the same unhinged stuff. He's also dealing with the fallout from that comedian that spoke at the Madison Square Garden rally from a few days ago. So I don't think he's closing this race particularly strong. And I think she is closing this race in a really savvy way. It's exactly like for somebody that wants her to win. When I see her strategy in terms of messaging, I feel really encouraged because that's the right message you want to send to undecided voters. Just let Trump be Trump. He's going to be deranged and unhinged like he normally is. And I think it's going to turn off a lot of undecided voters. So I mean, I feel pretty good right now. I'm still going to be nervous on election day, but as of right now, I feel reasonably confident that she's going to win. You know, like I'm not sweating. I'm not super nervous. I was definitely more nervous like a few days ago, but just watching how this final week in the race is materializing, I think we're headed in the right direction. And I think Trump is headed in the wrong direction.
Walls. They just need to know a little bit more information. That means we're on track to win a very close election. It also means we have more work to do. Those undecided voters, those lower propensity voters, they need to hear from us. They need to have people at their doors. They need to get phone calls.
Trump's theory of this election is the same theory that he went with in 2016. It actually worked for him in that year. It's the same theory that he went with in 2020. It did not work for him during that election. He is trying to turn out the base, and they are trying to turn out low propensity voters. So they are specifically, this is what the reporting suggests, they are specifically targeting voters that did not vote in 2018, that did not vote in 2020, that did not vote in 2022. They're aggressively courting what people call low propensity voters, and they're doing it with racial division, fears about the economy. So they're really trying to get people afraid, whip people into hysteria about the state of the southern border, the state of illegal immigration in this country. Violent migrants murdering young women and this and that and the other thing. And their theory is that this will hopefully turn out low propensity voters for them. The Kamala campaign are targeting high propensity voters. They're targeting moderates in suburbs all over the country that did vote in 2018, that did vote in 2020, that did vote in 2022. Right. And to a lesser extent, they are targeting Republicans, never Trump Republicans, moderates that maybe prefer conservative policy. Maybe they're somewhat socially conservative, definitely fiscally conservative, but have soured on Trump since January 6th and the felony convictions and just the general chaos that surrounds his campaign whenever he runs. So if it were me running a campaign, I would feel more comfortable like being stronger with high propensity voters. To me, it seems like a gamble for Trump to bet on people that are not super engaged to show up in November. I just don't think that that's a super smart strategy. But, what do we know about Trump? We know that he is physically incapable of keeping his together. He cannot help it. And so I feel like his campaign kind of had no choice but to target low propensity voters with the sort of sensationalized, they're going to kill you and eat your daughter and all that stuff. They knew that he was not going to be able to turn that off. And so they just turned that into an election strategy. It's like, well, if he's going to do that, let's just lean into it as much as possible. And then hopefully we can get these disengaged voters to show up in November. I just don't think that's a super smart strategy. But But he could ultimately prove vindicated by the time we get to, election day or the day after, whenever we know.
They need to see us wherever they are in any part of their life, so we leave no stone unturned. And that's really where you come in. I know you're anxious. I know you're worried because you know what the stakes are, and it's okay to be worried. But what we can do for you is help you channel that anxiety into helping us. And
honestly, that fear that resist libs feel, like the suburban wino soccer moms, that fear, I think, has been a tremendous benefit to the Democratic Party in the Trump era. That fear is the reason why we did so well in 2018. Despite the fact that we lost a seat in the Senate, I believe, but we did really well in the House. That fear is the reason why we pulled off a trifecta when very few people thought we were going to be able to do that in 2020. That fear is the reason why we limited Republican gains in the House in 2022 after a massive mobilizing campaign to get people to turn out because of Dobbs, because of frustration with Trump's extremist candidates that were doing election denialism. It was the reason why we were able to pick up, we were able to expand our Senate majority in 2022, besides it being a first midterm for an incumbent party, which is typically a bloodbath. It's fear. I like that Kamala is injecting her brand of joy and laughter and these kinds of things in her campaign. I do like seeing that. It's welcome, especially in the modern climate when things are so polarized. But it's fear. That fear is the reason why Democrats have just been doing so consistently well in the Trump era. And so I like the fact that our voters are scared shitless. I think that's a good thing. I think that is an asset. Like some amount of doomerism, I think it's fine because it motivates people to work. If people are so doomer that they don't think that there's a point to voting and we're going to lose no matter what, then obviously that's a problem. But that's not what I see. I see people engaged. I see people horrified of a second Trump term, and I see that motivating. I talk to a lot of people about this stuff every day. And that's just, that's consistently what I've seen in my own chat, in my replies, is, Democrats just being super afraid that Trump is going to win. And what do we see on the flip side? We see MAGA doing premature victory laps. We see MAGA predicting like a Mondale Reagan landslide. We see MAGA, basically predicting that Trump is going to sweep all 7 swing states and possibly pick up New Hampshire and Virginia and Minnesota. It is just unbridled optimism in the MAGA camp this time around. And that's an interesting dynamic to observe. I wonder if psychologically feeling like you're ahead motivates Republican voters in a way that doesn't for Democrats, and vice versa. Feeling like we're going to lose motivates Democrats better than thinking that we're going to win. I don't really know why that is. I don't know if the Trump campaign are catering their message to sort of feed into that dynamic, or if they're manufacturing that dynamic themselves. I really don't know. I have no idea. But it's interesting to watch.
This campaign. So maybe you can go knock on doors because you're close to a battleground state, or you live in a battleground state. Maybe you can make phone calls or send texts from your home, or maybe you can do something that only you can do, which is talk to people in your own lives, the people that you see every day. Maybe you work with them. Maybe there are people in your life that you don't always want to talk politics about, because I know talking about politics is hard, but we need you to have those conversations. And if you even just have one of those hard conversations, that is going to make a difference in this race.
I tried having a couple conversations with my mom. She put up a boundary and said, listen, I just don't want to talk politics anymore. And I just had to respect that. And so I had a conversation with my dad, and I might have spoken about it on yesterday's stream, but just anecdotally from, I just want to report from my own anecdotal experience here. My dad is still supporting Trump, but it's tepid support, which that is a big shift for him. In the Trump era, he was an enthusiast. He fully backed Trump. He liked his policies. He bought into the narrative that Trump was being unfairly persecuted. He's a retired cop, and Trump was out there talking about how he's going to give cops immunity and give them more funding. And so my dad had a personal kind of investment in the Trump campaign, because Trump in many ways was targeting people like my dad, like really aggressively with their rhetoric. But this time around, when I was speaking to my dad a couple days ago, he completely changed his tune. He was definitely bad mouthing Kamala, and you know, he was bringing up completely baseless claims, like she put 1,000 black men in jail for nonviolent, you know, marijuana offenses, stuff that's been debunked 1,000 times over. So he was repeating those claims, but then when I pressed him on Trump, he came back and he said, listen, I hate all politicians. And I was like, whoa, because even though that's support, that's tepid support. And I wonder if that is a theme. I wonder if that's a trend that's occurring elsewhere in the country, where you had otherwise enthusiastic Trump supporters are now, you know, it's tepid support. I wonder if that's happening, you know. In my dad's case, I think psychologically it would be difficult for someone like my dad to watch what happened on January 6th with Trump's supporters, you know, beating the crap out of cops. No matter how partisan my dad might be, no matter how loyal to Trump he might have been in the past, that might have been just a bridge too far. So just anecdotally, that's just, I want to relay that, you know, I've observed a pretty significant shift in my dad. Even though he's still voting for Trump, it's tepid support. It's tepid.
So check out go.kamalaharris.com. And no matter what you think you can do to help us, that is the home base to help you do it. We need you there. We are going to win this race. I promise you we're going to win this race, but we have to close this out strong and keep doing the work. And we need you, and we are grateful for you.
Thank you for giving me money.
Ooh, she promised we're going to win. Okay, there's some hopium. I'll take a promise, sure. I'm not going to promise you guys that she's going to win. But this is a very capable campaign strategist promising that we're going to win. So